Hey Outer Worlders, welcome to the Outer World Workshop. I'm Jimmy, and today we're going to be doing the second part of our Dejarik Table build. By making this table, I wanted to use different techniques and just get out of my comfort zone so I can do stuff that I normally don't do. And that's what I did here. I'm working with wood. I have worked with wood before, but I'm no expert. So I hope you enjoy this build, and let's just get into it.
So first, I use a stick to measure out all the circles I needed. I measured out halfway, put a nail in the center, and then I could mark another hole that I made the measurement I needed so I can cut out all the circles. If you have a large compass, you won't need to do this, but I didn't have one, so I made one up. We drilled some pilot holes so we can start cutting the rest with the jigsaw. Like I said, all the design and shapes and measurements were taken from the Facebook group of Dejarik Builders. And I once again thank them all for all their information, all their help on this build. So now to round it off a little bit, again I nail it to the table and just sand it a little bit. And now the bottom layer, I wanted it thicker since I had it 1/2 inch. I glued two together and then started with the rails that are going up to make the base for the cylinder. So I glued them and screwed them in their place, drilling pilot holes so it would be easier. And the top part is just one layer of 1/2 inch plywood, and then I glued and stapled them in marks that I had done prior. And now I'm cutting a 3/8 flexible wood that I bought just for this. And the tricky part, trying to align it all so it could be straight. I cut it too exact and there were some parts that didn't line up, but then I fixed it later on. You don't have to necessarily use flexible wood, but this was what was easier and more available for me, and I thought it would be stronger. Now I'm drilling a hole in the bottom because this table will not be battery operated for now, and I would like to put cable through it. And using sanding sealer, I put a couple of coats on it, trying to make the wood as soft as possible after sanding, and as you can see, it did not work and I had to use another method. Now I 3D printed the bottom parts and they did not have pilot holes, so I had to make a jig and drill holes so I could put some dowels so it could be connected the same as the top part. And we do that on both sides of all the pieces. And as we did with the top part, we put in the dowels and some glue and tape. And in some of the parts we use clamps to just maintain it a bit straighter while it dried. While that dried, I sanded all the parts, the top part, and put some sanding sealer on it. This part won't be seen, but I still wanted it as smooth as I could. And started sanding. And like I said last time, I don't like sanding. It's rough, it's coarse, and it gets everywhere. I also did some plastic welding to just strengthen the joints a bit more. And it's just using a soldering iron with some of the filament and melting it all together so it could be like a weld. And there we have all the parts welded on the inside and underneath, and some parts on the top. And again, more sand. This is something that if you want to get into doing a project like this, or any other project that requires sanding, like me, you have to get mentally prepared. So again, I used the Van Oaks technique with the Bondo spot filler and some acetone for the 3D printed parts. And after noticing that the wood wasn't completely smooth, I used some spackling plaster, mixed it with some water, pretty runny, so I can just put multiple coats on it with a brush. As you can see, I had painted it already silver, but it wasn't as smooth as I wanted. So this really helped out. Let it dry, put a couple of coats on, and then sand and sand again. In the end, it wasn't perfect, but it was much better than it was in the beginning with just the sanding sealer. And now we sand and paint all the 3D printed parts and every part of it and just put everything together. And this is the vase. And afterwards, with the top on it, this is what we have until now. Completed with all clear coat and everything.
And there you have it. That's the second part of the Dejarik Table build. And I think it's coming out pretty good, even though I'm not that good with wood. I'm just using different techniques and looking things up to see how I can get the result that I want. And it's just to show you, you don't have to be an expert to make these things or have an idea and just create it. You just get into it. Look things up, ask people how can it be done, and just try it. So thank you once again for watching this video. There's still part 3. It's going to be all the little details, switches, buttons, lights, and all the other stuff. And if you don't want to miss it, you can subscribe down below, hit the like button, and share it so others can also see it and subscribe if they want to. I also have a Patreon page down in the link if you want to help us in that manner and be one of our patrons. I really appreciate it. And also, I'm going to be putting down a link to my Amazon wishlist. If you want to help me in that manner too, it would be greatly appreciated. So once again, thank you for tuning in into the Outer World Workshop. And remember, if you have an idea, don't hesitate to create something out of this world.